You're listening to Morning Edition on 90.9 WBUR. Good morning. I'm Steve Brown in for Tiziana Deering. The biotech industry's biggest gathering is happening in Boston this week. The Bio International Convention is kicking off during a particularly stressful time. Plunging valuations, layoffs, funding cuts, and empty lab space beg the question, is Boston losing its biotech crown? Scott Kirsner is the contributing columnist for WBUR's editorial partner, MassLive. He spoke to veterans of the industry in anticipation of this big event. Hi, Scott. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
So, can you start with reminding us what's been happening in the biotech space here in Massachusetts? The turning point seems to be around 2021. What exactly happened?
Well, I mean, that is a good point to start at. You remember 2020 and 2021 were the COVID years.
Hmm.
And I think there was a lot of enthusiasm around not just the COVID vaccines, but other diseases and conditions that biotech companies might treat. And so 2021 was like the high watermark for venture capital investment
Hmm.
going into biotech startups. And it's kind of been a slide since then. And obviously, the beginning of the Trump administration this year brought a whole bunch of new changes and challenges.
Sure, we'll get to that in a moment. But what did you hear leading up to this conference? What's the general attitude right now?
Boston has obviously been a major focal point over the last couple months. You have not just the Trump administration's and the Department of Education's ongoing battle with Harvard University, but you have the Doge and Elon Musk cutbacks of funding from the National Institutes of Health. And that was always something we were proud of, all that National Institutes of Health funding and National Science Foundation funding and other funding that came to us from DC. And really, this year, the story is the spigot of that has been turned off. And it just happens that we're hosting the industry's biggest convention this week. So a lot of things are coming together.
You recently spoke with Rachel Shaw, the CEO of a Cambridge startup who's grappling with the question of whether to move her headquarters out of Massachusetts. Here's a clip from that conversation.
We've had a lot of outreach from countries in Europe, in particular, our friendly neighbor up north, inviting us to consider opening up offices. But, these decisions take time. And I think Massachusetts is distinctive in the range of programs and tools to support early stage companies.
Tell me a little bit more about that conversation.
Well, I think, her company, which is called Vaccess, and a lot of other companies are now being targeted by other regions to say, hey, if you are going to open up a new research and development center, if you need to have a site where maybe you're going to want to hire a lot of international scientists or international employees, maybe the US is not the best place for that anymore. And that's a real problem for us in Massachusetts because we, first of all, have a lot of lab space that has been built and was the construction of which was posited on all these biotech companies growing here and
Hmm.
adding lots of jobs here. We'd
Sure.
like to fill all that lab space and have those employees. And so you have the situation where people like Rachel Shaw's company are being pitched and being romanced to grow in other places. That's going to be a real problem, not just for the lab space, but for our regional economy.
What can the Commonwealth of Massachusetts do to stem the bleeding?
I think that there really needs to be a full court press in terms of what funding from an economic development bill that was passed last year, what funding can be dedicated to these companies quickly to support them. And I think we also don't have, right now, we're kind of in between secretaries of economic development. There's an interim secretary in place. And so I'd like to see a permanent secretary put into that role because life sciences is just an industry. Many industries need support right now, but life sciences is really one that I think people feel needs defending and protection.
Okay, Scott Kirsner, contributing columnist for WBUR's editorial partner, Mass Live. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks, Steve.
You can read Scott's full report on masslive.com.